Long time no see. I hope you haven't forgotten about me. I know it's been a while, but I've had a lot on my plate and I didn't have the time to do much on this project. I did, however, manage to get some stuff done. And it's pretty interesting stuff too. Or at least I'd like to think so. Anyway, with that lengthy preamble out of the way, let's get into the episode. If you recall, at the end of the last episode, I realized my sphere placeholder enemies weren't attacking the player anymore after I added a state machine to control their behavior. After some investigation, I figured out that they had no way of recognizing an enemy being in their attack range. Obviously this won't do, so I introduced a new state machine for managing weapon behavior. This is apparently an approach others have used to great effect, so I'm not just setting out on my own wild adventure with this one. That being said, my implementation is pretty basic, and the creature will just try and attack as much as the weapon will allow them whenever there's an enemy in their detection zone. But I'm pretty sure that's how most enemy behavior works in games anyway. I had to copy the area 2D from the weapon to the attack behavior state machine, and I did this by grabbing the weapon's area 2D and transforming the state machine's area to match it. I wanted to see if I could just hook into the weapon's area entered signal, but as far as I can tell, that's not possible. You can only have one signal receiver, and unless I make some kind of master node that actually receives the signal and then references the weapon and the attack state machine, it's not going to work. Plus, it would be more disruptive to my existing architecture anyway, so I think my solution is fine. Now, the creatures can attack whenever an enemy is within range and still chase the enemy at the same time, which if I had just added a new behavior to their behavioral state machine, wouldn't have been possible. I'm pretty proud of this because it's fairly modular and doesn't depend on anything else, so I could easily add this to a trap or something that will trigger when the player enters its attack range. That's about it for the more technical stuff, at least for a little while. Now, we get to do some art. So, as you might have noticed, I've been trying to create a good tile set at about a 45-degree angle on the x-axis.
Why?
Well, it's because I thought it would look nice. This was kind of a bad idea though, because I'm not very familiar with perspective drawing, and doing things like floors with curves or pools or really anything more than just a box was beyond my ken. Fortunately, I have been making things with Blender for like 14 years, so I figured I'd create templates for myself to draw over, so I could get the perspective right. This was an ongoing process with a lot of trial and error to get what I wanted, so buckle up because you guys are going to follow along with me. I first had to model some geometry that I could use to test with, so I started making some walls and canals. Now, I've never pretended to be a really good modeler, so don't be too harsh with me. Plus, right here I'm really just trying to get some shapes that I can use to learn how I will be slicing the geometry up anyway, so it doesn't really matter how it looks. After I got that done, I realized I needed a way to make the render actually resemble pixel art. Now by default, Blender blurs the render and uses the full 16.9 million colors available to it, which makes for a smooth, blurry image when you're at low resolution. So to fix this, I just adjusted the filter size on the film to the smallest it would go, which gives me a nice crisp, pixely look. There were still too many colors though, so I passed the output through a posterize node in Blender's compositor, where I could set the number of steps it would use. I played around with adding colors here, which was fun, but eventually decided to just use grays and to paint the exact colors I want in Sprite. Sprite? I don't know. Now that I had proven I could use this method to create assets in Blender, I spent the next month just playing around with it. I really had no idea what I wanted the architecture to look like, or how it would tile, or any of that, so I just tried a lot of iterations. They all get thrown out. Or at least most of them do, as I learn about perspective and layout and how to divide the sections into tiles. So in the background, I'll speed through the footage of me working and you can see me slowly start to get the hang of things. But don't worry about paying too much attention because it's just to illustrate my journey as an artist, hopefully. Okay, so I have had to make some decisions about the scope of this game because I'm very afraid of it ballooning out of hand and becoming too big for a first-time project. As much as I have a lot of really cool ideas for what this game could be, for right now I need to remember the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. To that end, I have actually been working on a game design document to lay out exactly what I plan to do. It's not done yet, as the simple template I picked is actually not that simple and is kind of insanely detailed. So I have to do some thinking about the more technical stuff. I'll give you guys a preview of sorts for the game design here though. First off, the game is now named Sewer Sweep, not Sewer Souls, and it's a roguelite with non-randomized levels but randomized enemy configurations and some randomized elements within the levels. It takes place in a modern day or near modern day setting in the sewer system of a major city and its outlying suburbs. You, the player, will have to clear out sections of sewer from infestations of creatures by eliminating as many of them as you can, and then clearing out their nests at the end of each section of levels. There will be at least 3 sections to clear out in a run, with the possibility of finding secret sections that lead to special encounters. You will have an assortment of basic weapons to use at the beginning, and you can find other weapons in the levels, which you can unlock if you take them to the end of the run or sacrifice them and send them back up to the surface. There will be 16 possible enemies you can encounter, with 3 to 4 selected randomly each run. Some can only be present if certain conditions were met in previous runs, and each one should have some special feature like poison damage or the way they behave, like fleeing when damaged. The idea is that each run is a job, and the infestations are happening over time. This isn't a game where you're stuck in a point in time until you win. If you find the exit to a level without clearing out all the enemies, you can still leave the level and go lower, though the number of enemies is divided into quarters, and you will reduce the difficulty of the final nest clearing based on the percentage of enemies you eliminated in the previous sections. And you will encounter some number of those enemies in subsequent sections if you don't totally eliminate them in your current section. I know that's a little hard to understand because that was very hard to read. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to explain it. But hopefully you'll get to see what it looks like as I develop it. Okay, so now that you have a better idea of what I want this game to be, we can look at what I ended up with finally for the tile map. I decided to go for a big concrete pipe kind of look based off of the sewers from this video right here. I could never quite get the sections as I rendered them to be laid out correctly, so I had to do that manually in Sprite. I also had to do some editing to make things fit when lined up. This was a little bit tedious, but not too bad, and certainly easier than trying to hand draw everything. I made some little details I could paint around too. These were just done by hand, and worked pretty well, but I'll need to make way more to make sure the levels don't look too clean or boring. It is a sewer after all. With a better set of tiles to work with now, I put together this new room and modified the lighting to try and make it more atmospheric. In the process of all this, I started using a new color palette that I'm trying to stick to, so I decided I needed to repaint the player character. It's funny because he ends up looking a lot more like the original Mighty Beans-esque design from my first game, but I think he stands out better against the dark background now. Finally, I got it in my head that combos would be cool to have, and I thought it would be pretty easy to implement.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Turns out I was right, it was pretty easy. I added a combo cancel timer, a max combo count, a combo counter, and a cooldown time before attacking again after the combo ends. For the pitchfork the player has right now, it has a simple 3-hit combo. The default enemies have a bite attack that technically has a combo of 1. A funny little thing about GDScript that I discovered is that if you call play on an animation that's already playing, it won't cancel it and start it again, which I kind of just assumed it would do. So I had to make sure I cancel the sprite animation if it's already playing when I try to play it again, and then everything is peachy. and now I have a cool added layer of depth to the combat. That's it for this episode. I like to think I got a good amount done as far as art goes, and I learned how to use Blender in a cool new way. There's also the whole letting enemies attack thing and the combos, so I did get some stuff done that wasn't just drawing. For the next episode though, I really need to get the weapon system completely sorted out and begin working on the actual basics of the game, like levels, progression, gameplay loop, all that good stuff. As always, if you want to support me, you can check out my app, Real Chimes, on the Android and Apple app stores. It's free with ads, or you can pay an amount of your choice to remove them. I'd be very grateful if you'd at least check it out, and you can let me know what you think on Instagram or Twitter at studio.elephant.software on Instagram and _studioelephant on the platform formerly known as Twitter. That's all for now. Please like the video if you did, subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you in the next episode.